the meeting is crime that has been happening in Crossroads. And we have, as you can see, quite a few officers that have come to speak to us, introduce themselves. Some of these are our new CROs and things that we can do to help them keep Crossroads safe.
My name is Captain AJ Karpovich. I recently took over the 2nd Patrol Division on June 18th. So this is my first chance to meet with you guys. And I've been talking with Gary and Sherry for the last month, coordinating some information and working on some issues that we've had in the neighborhood, along with trying to make some things better going forward with the way we communicate. We have Lieutenant Phil Dixon here with us. He is the Red Sector Commander. Right now, he's leaving Saturday. He's going to be going to our training division. And we have Lieutenant Chris Barnes over here on your right. He is coming in to take over as a sector commander. So they're going to give you, we'll have your names and they'll have their phone numbers so you know who you can contact. Our CRO, I'll let him introduce himself. Tell him how you pronounce your last name.
It's pronounced Toad, but as long as you start out with a T, I'm pretty good with it. So.
Kind of a note, if everybody would use their inside auditorium voice, we are recording.
So I'm Officer Toad, the new resource officer for your neighborhood. Not new being a resource officer for about 11 years now, just not in this area. So that's a little bit about me. You want me to move on?
Have it, all you.
Well, I did just answer past July 14th, and it is as follows: 7 larceny from autos, 2 of which were vehicles were rummaged through, nothing was taken. 2 of which were left unsecured. The rest was listed as unknown how they gained entry. 3 larceny parts from autos. Those are the Cadillac converter thefts. 3 stolen autos, 2 of which were recovered same day and returned to the residence. You had 1 burglary to a residence in the area. Back window was broken. Victim unfortunately was uncooperative with the detective. I'm not sure why. But a couple of rounds were taken and documents. That was all that was taken from the house. You had a shooting into an occupied dwelling that was on Hyde Park. 1 victim suffered a non-life-threatening gunshot wound. That's an investigation that's ongoing, so that's about all I can add to it. You had a shooting into an occupied vehicle on Shepherd Avenue. Victim, while driving his vehicle, heard a thud. Following day, had a flat tire. When he changed it, found a round had gone through the bumper into the tire. And then you had the incident on Glade Road, the robbery attempt and homicide, which is cleared by arrest. And since it hasn't gone to court yet, I have limited information I can pass it. Since I took over as your community resource officer, I know it hasn't been that long of a period of time, but I've concentrated mainly on Banker Road and Old Ocean View. I've written up 10 abandoned autos and a utility trailer. Pretty much all of those have evaded or been towed. I have a few more that need to be towed tomorrow. Also run stationary radar at Banker and Old Ocean View Road, and then further north, I've run radar there as well. Only had a few violators so far, but it seems to be pretty good. I might move around a little bit after you guys give me some pointers of where you would like me to go. I am radar certified, so it's a bonus. I just ask you to keep in mind I have other civic leagues that also request speed enforcement. So whenever I do ask, I just ask you to like give me good times, the best times I can get out there, so we can get the best bang for our buck when I get out there. It's the ones that are like it's all the time or it's every day, and then I get out there at 11 o'clock and there's only like 1 car comes through. So whatever the complaints are, just let me know. They have my email. I leave some cards. It's got my cell number on it and my email. I like the email best because with everything I have going on, it's easy for me to keep track of what I have to do, what I've been doing, and how best I can help you folks. So that's what I have for your crime report, and anything you guys have for me to point me in the right direction.
Spell your last name, please.
Spell TOTH.
TOTH. Thank you.
I brought this up. We have them both. We have 2 speed cameras in our neighborhood. The last chief doesn't like the reliability of them, but and I know the city does have that data. They paid for a year's contract on that. If you guys can download that, it gives you an idea, date, time, when people are speeding down Old Ocean View, down Chesapeake Boulevard.
I work closely with him, so what I'll do is I'll ask him to send me a report from those cameras. So he has them. I just have to ask.
Let me throw this out. Generally, when we get a speeding complaint, the first thing we do is we work with traffic, and traffic will put out our camera system. I believe it's called the Black Cat.
Yes.
And they'll put it out whenever you tell us the hours are. And sometimes it'll show there's a problem. You say every car is speeding down the street. This last one we did, somewhere it showed it was less than 1%. I think one car was 4 miles an hour over the speed limit. But sometimes it's a perception problem because there's small streets and when cars go through there fairly fast, it's not always speeding. But we always include that as part of our process, Black Hat, and then the officers run the radar. So we try to get it both because visibility is a great thing too. You know, sometimes if there is a problem, that slows it down just being there, you know. So we kind of take a couple pronged approach at those speeding issues.
Four-way stop. 1 out of 10 cars will stop. The rest of them just, they don't stop between 5 and 7. Every night.
I understand you guys had concerns about crime. Do you have any questions regarding those two incidents that we may be able to clarify for you that you haven't had answered yet?
The city 2 years ago signed up with Ring Neighbors. Are you guys actively using it, or is it just kind of something there and nobody pays attention to it? Because a good example, Portsmouth is giving out cameras and all this, and Hampton has a response center actually built in. And just as clarification, if you guys could come to the center, it makes it easier to record everybody since we are recording this and it's being watched by a couple of people outside the room. So, you know, what is being done to better integrate other resources to help you guys do this, you know, i.e. the Ring neighborhood, things like this?
I'm not sure where that program is currently.
Video pictures, stuff like that. I know in the detective division, they use them regularly or campuses, things like that. For the minor crimes, they're probably not used a great deal. And I'm just being honest with you, only in the sense that if we don't have witnesses or it's a really dark picture, we don't have anything else to go on. Really not. But we do know the value of the Ring cameras is unqualified. I mean, they're awesome. I mean, and I don't think anybody's going to tell you otherwise. They're a great help to us, and we do use them. And if you get video stuff like that, can't turn it over to Officer Toth, and he will make sure that that gets to the appropriate person. So, like, if you talk to a street officer and you report something and it doesn't work out the way you think it should, tell him, get him the video, and he'll make sure it gets to the right people. And that is not to say that our street officers aren't doing a good job, because I believe they are, but at the same time, it is sometimes when they get super busy and they're going call, you know, that little extra push on trying to get something solved 3 0 is something.
And it ain't just Ring for you guys. As I was talking to you a little bit earlier, you can maybe elaborate on that more. There's, of course, I use Vivid, and there's a lot of other video door camming systems and stuff like that. You know, personally, I'm thinking about putting a security camera all the way down to the end of my property, because REO Link has one that's solar powered, Wi-Fi accessible, and would record everything within a very good range. And
Ring is the only one we actually use that I'm aware of that we have a partnership with. I'm not saying the others are valid. And the bigger picture here is it's not really about Ring, it's about the video. And so, like, as long as we're getting pictures that are good and high quality, that's what matters. A lot of these Ring cameras do have better video systems than banks do. I'm not kidding you. So, like, I mean, the quality pictures that we get from those Rings or whatever they are, I mean, they're still going to be valid regardless. So.
And what we were talking about was any type of still photo or a video that you get, you can always submit it through the P3 app, which is what we were talking about. You know, I'm Detective Hughes with the police department. And I'm the coordinator for the crime line. Excuse me, I'll just spread out. I bought some stuff for you guys. I've got some magnets and pens and some stickers to help promote the crime line. I'm gonna leave all that for you. I've got some statistics about crime line, and I want to just give you just a brief background about crime line and how it even started. So it began in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1976, and they had a robbery. Now, again, we're talking about 1976, where there weren't any cameras. People didn't have cell phones. They had an incident that occurred, and a teenager was shot and killed during a robbery. It happened late at night, and it happened in an isolated area. Well, the detective working the case had nothing. Tips, no leads, he had nothing to go on. Weeks went by. He still had nothing to help solve this robbery or this homicide of this teenager. So we got the idea to put some information out to the media and ask for the public's help. And in doing that, he said, I'm going to offer two things. If information that you give the police department leads to an arrest, you'll get a reward, and you can remain completely anonymous. So you call the police department, give the information, don't have to give your name, no information, personal information about you. You don't have to come to court. And if it helps solve this homicide, you'll receive a reward. Within 72 hours of that push to the public, a tipster had called in, had identified the car and a possible suspect. So the detective realized at that point, there are two reasons why people don't get involved. It's apathy. Didn't happen to me, didn't happen to my loved one, I wasn't involved. Apathy. Or retaliation. Fear of retaliation. So he started the program in 76, and that's how it was developed, was to offer rewards. You give anonymous tips, and it just grew from there. So Norfolk started their crime line in 1981. So we're in our 41st year now. It's a great program. It works. I've got statistics for you. Last year was kind of unusual. We didn't get any tips that helped solve a homicide, but they still approved over $4,000 in rewards for drugs, robberies, any number of things. The list is all on there. So the way it works, everybody here's call 188 lock you up. And that's a great way to give information. The only problem with 188 lock you up is when you call, the person on the other line that you talk to has that one time to get as much information from you as they can. Because the chances are you're not going to call again. Most people don't. So that's when we've been pushing the P3 app. You can get it on your phone, you download it. It's a P for it's in a blue box and the letters or the number 3. So you can go to the P3 app, download it to your iPhone or Android, or you can go to p3tips.com. And if you go /1126, that's helpful because that 1126 identifies Norfolk. So Virginia Beach has their number, theirs is 854, and Portsmouth has their number, but 1126 is for Norfolk. So it's p3tips.com /1126. In that P3, either on your phone or on your computer, that's where you can download all these pictures. And you can have a two-way dialogue because you'll go back to your phone and you'll look and see if you had any messages. And if we need more information, we may ask you some additional questions. Hey, you said you had information about a robbery that occurred, but you didn't tell us when. I mean, people give you a little bit of information, so you can have a two-way dialogue with someone and they can get more information from you. You receive a tip ID number, and that's how you're identified. You don't come to court, you never give any personal information. So the crime line is composed, the Norfolk crime line is like all the others in the jurisdiction. They're all volunteers, they're citizens, they're like you guys. So if any of y'all want to get involved with crime line, you can reach out to the captain or your new lieutenant. They know how to get a hold of me. I don't have any cards. And I can give you the information about the board. So being the coordinator, my job is to be the liaison between the police department and crime line. So tips come in, I get the tips, I vet them, I disseminate them to whatever detective is working that particular case. And if that information leads to an arrest, the detective lets me know, I take that information to the board, and then the board decides on how much to pay the tips. That's the way it works. All the jurisdictions use the same point scale. So we had found years ago that people would kind of shop around. Well, Virginia Beach pays a little more for this crime than Norfolk or than Portsmouth. So I'm gonna give tips to Virginia Beach. So we all get together and we have a point scale system. Everyone pays out the same amount. Yes, ma'am. Well, we're all part of the Greater Hampton Roads Regional Crime Line. And that includes all our 7 cities out to Isle of Wight, Williamsburg. So it's in this area, within the Southeast area. Yes. So I would encourage you, if you want to get involved with Crime Line, they're always looking for board members. If you want to make a donation, it is not government funded. It is not a police program. So all their money that they get out for rewards is generated from donations and fundraising. So again, if you want to get involved, it's a great program. I would also, I'm going to leave these for you as well. There's the information about P3. There's a little barcode thing, or whatever they call it, QR code. And we also have a Facebook page, a Twitter account, and a website. So you can submit tips any of those ways through those areas as well. Okay, so we'll leave all that for you. Anyone have any questions about Crime Line or P3 tips or anything? Violent crimes, and as I said earlier, we didn't receive any tips last year to solve any homicides. We've already paid out 2 $1,000 tips, or they've approved 2 $1,000 tips for homicides this year. The homicides, the violent crime, robbery, and homicides, those are going to be the larger amounts. You know, what you don't want to use Crime Line for is if you see a crime in progress. Don't call Crime Line then, okay? Call the police. But what you do want to use it for is when we had a bank robbery and we've got a great picture of somebody, well, we don't know who they are. So the police department sends it out to the media and somebody in the city is going to know that guy. So that's when you want to call Crime Line and say, hey, I recognize that person. Okay? Or whatever the case is, you just, again, don't call if it's a crime in progress. Or if you are a victim of a crime. That's not what Crime Line's for. If you're a victim of a crime, or if it's crime in progress, call police. Anything else?
Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming in. Our common attorneys here, I see great resources, and we appreciate your time as well. Yes, sir.
Understand that. And I was why is it taking the dispatch for so long? Are you sure it's that?
I don't know what the status of dispatchers are, but you're correct. It's not so much short staff, but we're kind of leveled off here. And we put some resources back into the precinct, so we're able to do a little bit more. But what we had to adjust is what calls they are responding to. And there's some communication issues in that you call the dispatch and you don't get through, you may get frustrated and hang up. Or dispatchers may call you, you say, I just saw a crime, and well, they're gonna say, well, all right, we're gonna send you to our telephone reporting unit, which frustrates people as well, because the officers are going to the prioritized calls, violent crimes and other crimes that are in progress. So it can be frustrating, but I mean, we're asking you to hang in there. We've got the people out there.
Why does it take them so long to answer? So I had a friend, my yard guy, that was assaulted in Commodore Park. You black guys pull a gun on
I know what you're talking about.
he called 911 and they didn't answer for 20 minutes. Hung up, called them back, and then they answered after 4 minutes.
I'll have to look into that because the emergency operations centers, you know, being a fireman is separate from the fire department and separate from the police department, but we all work in concert. So I don't know what their status is. It'd be wrong for me to comment on it, but I can surely check in on it and find out for you. Yes, sir.
Part of what all this also is, of course, what is, as a department, are you doing to better kind of prevent the problems as you see our community is getting more problems? But this also entails the Commonwealth and of course the city. What is being done to help alleviate the catch and release? A good example was 2 years ago, most of you may remember, 8 people were arrested in Northside Park for looting indecent and a couple other things. Ultimately, it went into court. I went and took the time to research it and follow it. Only one individual was actually charged with any of the crimes. The other 7 were all dismissed, which is released. But out of that, and this is maybe something we have to go to, I'll use Kenny as the state senator side of things. He got a $50 fine and a $90 court cost. And I will tell you, he's right back over there in Northside Park.
Once again, I was part of Vice Narcotics, and as part of my job, I oversaw these type of operations that were out there trying to address that type of activity that we don't want in a park around children and everything else. Now we catch them and we clean them to a certain point, we bring them to the Commonwealth, we bring them to the city attorney. We don't have control over what the judge, and he's gonna tell you the same thing. He's made some changes on his team that really are gonna help us with that because it assigns a certain Commonwealth attorney to our precinct. So they're very in tune with the issues that you're having, say at Northside Park. They won't be unfamiliar with that. And they'll be familiar with, after this meeting, your frustration about what happens with that. But the same thing happens with young men and stolen auto. They get caught, we release them. We catch them tomorrow in another stolen car. They get caught, we release them. They get caught in another stolen car. So we're doing a good job of doing it, but we there's a point where believe it or not, we have to go back to society and lock your cars. It seems counterintuitive. We got to lock our cars. We don't leave our property in it, and then we don't make it available for the guys to do it over and over again. And then we have to rely on the prosecution teams to do the best they can to get the best results for us when it gets to court. So.
And for those who don't know, Rami here, Rami, why don't you come up front too, since you are Commonwealth attorneys, is here tonight with us. And of course, on the back row is our mayor.
Sorry to pop in late. I came straight from the office. I leave early. So, I double booked with South Bayview tonight. I have a short answer to your question on that one too, because I remember those Northside cases coming through. And we tried one. There was an officer posing as a 14-year-old girl. We took that to trial, and the ruling from the court was, well, I can't find beyond a reasonable doubt that that this particular individual knew or should have known that officer would have been 14 years old, therefore not guilty. So there are efforts that my prosecutors and I are making in this case in conjunction with now Captain Karpovich. Good to see. I've seen these gathers. When he was Lieutenant Karpovich with the Anti-Crime Bureau. Some of them are the ways that the law is written. The law by design to protect our constitutional rights makes it difficult for me to get convictions in court. It is by design. But what that means is that there are people that we know what they are up to. We know what they did. And the answer sometimes is, we know you're up to no good, but the evidence, so we put up the evidence and the court has to make decisions based on the evidence. So, and I mean, I know Northside Park's an ongoing problem. That's why prostitution and solicitation cases, they forgive. Since you asked about Richmond things, one of the main problems that we have I promise I'll get to it, that we have in the prosecution of a lot of these cases, whether it's people stealing stuff from your cars. So the guy who did 153 miles an hour on I-64, I'm sure he was going downhill. There are all of these cases. The way that Richmond has set this up, And, this is not a Norfolk problem. This is not a Mayor Alexander or council problem. The problem is that the way the Virginia Code is set up, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office is only mandated to prosecute felonies. So they are only funded to prosecute felonies. That means that every misdemeanor case, including those solicitation cases that we pick up from Northside Park, any misdemeanor, whether it's a domestic assault, whether it's a DUI, whether it's stalking, whether it's a brandishing, whether it's a concealed weapon, any of those crimes, I either have to get grant money. Both of my domestic violence prosecutors come to me on a federal grant. I get extra prosecutors from the city. So they give me a dedicated DUI prosecutor along with some other prosecutors, but that's not an infinite bucket. Or I have to find deficiencies in felony cases. I have to find felony cases that are low-level cases that they're called a felony, but in the end, if you look at the public safety danger that comes out of a misdemeanor, the misdemeanor is actually more dangerous for life and health, and therefore I have to direct the resources there. So, the very fact that we're even involved in prosecuting those solicitation cases, we're not there on the vandalism case, we're not there on the car larceny case, not because we don't want to be. I want to prosecute every misdemeanor in Norfolk. I just don't have the manpower. So we put the manpower into those cases because we know that it's a quality of life issue, that it's a don't put this around our kids issue, that it's a we need to be able to enjoy our park issue. So it's, where you direct your people, just like the police department is doing right now, is a reflection of values. And the reflection of the values of my office are that, I will find the resources, even when I don't have them, to prosecute that kind of case. Now, whether the case results in a conviction, that's what we have judges and juries for. We do our best, we put up the evidence, but it's by design to protect us. It is difficult to get convictions. Ma'am, I'm sorry, I promise I get to it.
Are basically hearing is that the guys on the street are doing their job, and then it's passed to you, and you're trying to do your job, but there's something blocking you being able to do your job. And you say it's the laws that the Commonwealth has set up. So what do we have to do to get this changed? So these people that are starting here at the bottom in our neighborhoods and in our parks, destroying our stuff, even though what they're doing isn't a felony, how can we fix this so that they can be prosecuted too?
That's an excellent question. The short answer is a Richmond answer. And I don't want to leave you with a bad impression here on this. What happens with those cases, they don't just get dismissed. Like, they do go through court. A lot of those people do get convicted. What you don't have is the benefit of a prosecutor there helping the police officers. It winds up being this almost Virginia-specific combination of the judge asking questions that we would normally ask and the police trying to do some of the functions that we do in court. And the end result is that there's a reason prosecutors exist. Like, we are better at doing that than if we're present than if we're absent. So, there are instances when the police, particularly difficult case by case, they'll say, can you get involved? So it's not like the police write somebody and then it's catch and release and everybody's out. People do get convicted. But this is a values issue. It is a values issue. If we value safety, if we value these things, then the best thing that you can do is to call your legislators and say, why is it that my Commonwealth's attorney doesn't have the manpower, or it isn't funded from Richmond to have manpower to prosecute these misdemeanor cases? Why do the police have to go out there on an island by themselves and get beaten up on by lawyers on the defense side? So I'm not trying to shift blame here. I'm not trying to deflect blame or deflect responsibility from myself. So, and I'm not suggesting that these people just walk out. A lot of them get convicted, but it's a safety issue overall. So the people don't start out with murder. They start out somewhere. I'd like to touch them before they get to the felony. I can't do that right now. And again, I want to be extra clear. I'm not calling out the mayor. I'm not calling out the city council. They're doing their best. The pots of money that you know, every dollar that comes to my office is a dollar that comes out of potholes, that comes out of the schools, that comes out of mental health care, that comes out of the police department. So incidentally, I've been down about 15% of my office over the last year because, you know, other jurisdictions have taken a number of my lawyers. And I have worked to raise pay in my office by changing my command structure without asking for a single extra dollar from council. You know, I asked for roughly 80,000 extra dollars out of about $4 million that the council gives me a year so that I could get advanced body camera review software. But other than that, I've been trying to raise those salaries up. But my friend who's the Commonwealth Attorney in Fairfax County, his Board of Supervisors was able to double the size of his office, double it, because Fairfax County is one of the most wealthy jurisdictions in the United States. They could just do that. You know,
We're just sitting there with our thumbs up, but that's pretty much right.
you said it. I didn't say it, but you think it's bad here. Go to a place like Petersburg. So you know, Mayor Alexander and everybody else, my starting salary right now for lawyers coming out with $150,000 in law school debt is $70,000. A year ago, it was $64,000. I was able to raise it 67, and then with the 5%, it's 70. I'm still not top of the market. I'm not the bottom, but I'm not the top. You go to the city of Petersburg, the starting salary for a prosecutor in the locality that has the highest per capita murder rate in Virginia is $61,000 or $62,000. If I've got it right, because that's the amount the state gives. So, you know, we're better off than a lot of other places. But yeah, you know, where we spend our money is what our values are. And the way that it is set up in Richmond currently is that wealthy localities, you know, and I'll call out our fellow localities. Now, I had a lawyer leave my office, good mid-level lawyer, not a supervisor, you know, good guy, but not a guy I was assigning murders to. So he was making $70,000 or $72,000 in Norfolk and working his rear end off. He's now making $90,000 in Suffolk, and he ain't working like he's working in Norfolk. So, and that's an arms race that we've seen in the police department. It's an arms race that we've seen in a lot of other places. That it shouldn't be like that. So you should get paid the same amount of work, same amount of dollars, the same amount of work. And it is not something, you know, it is something that I need your help with. You know, and I appreciate your asking how to help. Is to talk to your legislators and say, you know, either whichever party it is, you know, one party is you campaign on public safety, help us with public safety, pay our police officers, pay our first responders, and give us the prosecutors. Or you lost an election on public safety, you know, because you weren't doing enough on public safety. You know, help us with our police officers, our first responders, and our prosecutors. Nice to see you again.
Rick Anderson, Cottage Line Civic League. Mr. Mayor, Raymond, officers. I first want to thank Crossroads Civic League for the open invitation. This has been very informative. I would like to suggest to all of you, let's put this informative group of people together to go to each civic league. There's a lot of people out there that don't always read information in the paper. They don't realize the amount of effort that the city has gone through to raise police officer salary, to provide incentives for new recruits, to recruit from other areas. They don't realize what Raymond has just said. They don't understand those details. And the crime line, various other things, very helpful information. And I would like to request if we could get the same type of information to each civic league at our meetings. It's best heard in person. That way people could ask questions like we're doing here. So thank you again.
On that, on an IT note, I do plan to, and our Civic League as a general rule, everything is recorded to Zoom and then we transfer it over to our YouTube video for all of our videos that are pertinent and to public information. So once it's on YouTube, any Civic League, any group can share that. If there's questions and answers that people do not want on video at the end, we can edit that out for everybody's safety if need be. That's why I've gotten a lot of questions asked to me, and I'm taking the time to moderate those questions a little bit for everybody. One of the other questions, and AJ, you and I have spoke about this, quote unquote, the Walmart lot cop camera being put into Northside Park. Do you know when, a timeline?
We have one we just put in Community Beach. It's much like the ones on Gravy Street. They're useful in certain ways, but all we have to do is keep trying to get more of those, and I'm trying to figure out how we funded this last one, how we paid for that as well. And it has some limitations, but it gives us another eye in the sky. We don't have as many as Gravy Street, but Gravy Street has significant challenges as well. Community Beach, we have the same thing. So I think there's opportunities for us to expand that program. But we just got to figure out how to fund it and how to do it.
So this would be all of us as citizens. Sorry, Ken, putting it on. We need to go to our city councilman and our mayor and go, hey, where's funding? We have great, wonderful ARP funding that was put out. These units run approximately $35,000 each. In equivalent to budget, that's $35. What will it take to get one in Northside Park? We've been complaining about this for years. It would help you guys because it records everything. It isn't just Sherry. It isn't just Marlene. It isn't just me going into a bathroom and getting beat up for it after the fact to show that people have broke into a bathroom and things like this. This cameras would be there all the time. You guys could access it in the crime line section or whoever monitors those things as a regular basis and make that a lot more easier. What else are you guys trying to do to beef up, and what as we as citizens need to do to help you get that?
The first thing we always talk about is not being a victim of crime. Locking your doors, don't leave your car running, don't leave that spare key. I'm going to tell you, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you most of these stolen cars, 70% probably, are because there's a key left in there or it's left running. And then what these young men and kids are doing is they're taking that stolen car and they're going in and breaking into someone else's car. And then when they do that, if someone approaches them, which we say don't approach people that do this, they're actually committing violent crimes. So it just compounds right down the road. If we could cut off all those small crimes by doing our part as residents, we cut off some of those violent crimes as well. We're catching them. We catch them every day from these stolen cars. We catch them. People complain that we're restricted on how we can pursue and what we can do. But there's a certain danger to that too. Is it worth chasing someone for a car and then someone loses their life over that? Because so we have to balance, and it's taken very seriously on how we follow through on some of those things. So yes, we can recover your car and it's damaged. We can get that fixed, but we can't replace a life lost at an intersection or a child crossing the street somewhere. So it's not fair to say, well, council should do something about our pursuit policy or the police should chase more people, because there's balances we have to keep. And sometimes those things we have to weigh, on a one-by-one basis. And we have an officer making a decision. We always have a sergeant. We have a lieutenant. We have a field commander. They all weigh in on those times and those decisions. And sometimes we don't chase them. Sometimes we let them go. We cover the car a block later. Nobody's hurt. That's a win for all of us. We may not be able to prosecute them, but we got your car back and we got no one hurt. So we got to take our victories in that respect sometimes. So we have these cameras on Grammy Street. We have the one at Community Beach. We're talking about putting some cameras that are called flock cameras in some of the public housing areas. I'm going to make some suggestions of some communities that have, one way in and one way out. It's a great place for this camera. The flock camera is basically a motion activated camera that'll catch whatever car is coming in and out. And it will give us the ability, if we go to them and we agree with this, is that it's almost, and I'm going to describe it like this, it's almost like a facial recognition for vehicles. It'll catch the tag, and if you have certain stickers on the back, and all we get is that sticker, but the tag is out of plate, we can, search that database for, a fish sticker and a metal headband sticker. And if that car was taking a picture somewhere around Hampton Roads, we'll get that picture back, and then we'll have the tag number. It's already led to us solving some crime, so those are some other, it's like a force. I hate to use that old term, the force multiplier, but these are things that we put in place because, we're adjusting to our staffing levels, and we're getting better. I think we're kind of holding the line right now. We're building up as we go. I think we're in a lot better shape because thanks to things that happen with prosecutions or people see that are being successful. Thanks for the council for, making us competitive with other cities. We're not losing people like we did lose. And I'll have to say to everybody that has anything to do with your council, you should thank them because they've really looked out for the police department and the fire department. And they're what I think is part of the thing that's kind of slowed everything. And now we're going to just build back up. So we've contracted, but we're getting ready to start, when we get the people back, we're going to expand back and we'll just get better at what we do with all this technology. It's only going to help us.
Had a question over here, Chief.
I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm military. I'm stationed there. I'm raising kids here. Been here for about 5 years. In Ohio, we understand it's different. We gas law stuff. I'm not trying to think of it seems like more so telling us the way, don't be a victim, like, which I completely understand. But at the same token, we can't do it. We're still being, what can we do? Now, it's your job, but still being in lines of law to where we're not just victims. If someone is coming into my area and taking care of my stuff, I'm not saying I should just go on sure, but what can we do? Because making a phone call isn't enough. I mean, obviously, you had the guy who got shot and 20 minutes one way, 4 minutes the other. The system's broken. It's not working. I'm worried about my kids.
Your concerns are reasonable, but at the same token, we don't want you. You don't need another violent crime because you choose to defend someone's taking something out of your car and it leads to a struggle, which leads to you feeling like, you need to do something that drastic. We don't want that. And the couple will tell you the same thing. You'll have to answer for your own actions, but be the best witness you can be. And first of all, let me say thank you for your service. I came to Norfolk 1981 in the Navy, and I've been here ever since. I've been with the police department 37 years, 6 years in the Navy. That's what brought me here, and I'm still here. And I've been through some bad times and I've been through great times, but I didn't leave. I still believe and I still care that we could do all this stuff together. But it does take a certain part on the system. You have to be, if you're victimized, will be a great witness for us. That's what helps us catch people. Being part of that crime or being caught up in it, we just don't want that. We don't want you hurt, your family hurt. I mean, what we could do is what we're already doing.
Liability cars. I mean, all of a sudden now I'm burnt because my car is liability, it's stolen, it's damaged. I'm out of car. Right? That might be my own life. The one guy just got robbed delivering papers. You know what I mean? Like, it's massive.
But Captain, don't mind my jumping in.
No, jump in, sir.
Dude, I hear you. The problem, I can't give you legal advice for anybody else because I work for everybody at the same time. It is a hard and fast rule under Virginia criminal law that you cannot use deadly force to protect property. You just can't. You just can't. We have a current pending murder where that is the heart of the case. And so I hear you on that. Keep your wits about you. Watch. I know it's easy for me to say. Watch. Take precautions. Call 911 when it's appropriate. But I, like the captain, we had a group of folks who were checking car door handles, and when people went out there and were like, "Hey, what's the deal with that?" They started drawing guns on them. I don't want to see that. So yeah, I mean, gap insurance and all that. You're totally right, but the alternative is not. There's a reason we have police officers. I carry a badge. I can make arrests technically. I don't do that because I'm not trained to do it. I'm gonna get myself in a lot more trouble if I use my badge in a way that I don't know how to use it. And and I know you're in the military. And I get all that too. But
one of the things I had on the government house for bid verification. When I was asking them, there was an issue where one of the utility trucks was robbed. Someone was getting homework on renovation, and the guy went and chased him in his car and everything, and he lost him. And he was talking to the police, and I asked the officer, I forget which one it was, in my house, but he was saying that if he would have caught the guy and just held him until you guys came, he would have been in more trouble than the guy because breaking into the car is a misdemeanor, and actually holding something Well, where's that?
I don't know that I'm quite on the same page on that one. I think that, I wouldn't call that an abduction, but every case is different. The problem isn't like what the police officer is gonna write you for or not write you for, or what you might, and yeah, it's a misdemeanor, you're not gonna see one of my prosecutors on it for the reasons we already talked about, but you still are facing, quote unquote prosecution without prosecutor and conviction. But the bigger problem is, what if the guy draws down on it? What if he's like in your house, or what if his buddy who's standing 15 feet away sees you take off, goes into your car and takes your piece out of it? So it's just all of these things. Like, that's why the law says that life and property are in different categories, because you just don't want to risk your own safety. So yes, yeah.
AJ, I think you and I brought up and discussed this example. You talked about the flock cameras. A good example and a good street for that would be Banker Street, because you have a paper street, Dover Court on one end, and of course the school on the other end, where there is a lot of crime coming from that neighborhood. Our Civic League president can attest to that. She has a bullet in her window for it. That would be a good street for flock. But as you and I have talked about and got brought up tonight here, like Ring cameras, various security cameras, REO link cameras. There's a guy several months ago posted on Nextdoor. It's down off of East Only. He spent $800 on security system that pretty much half of it is actually street view level. He can record everything going in. And detective, I'm sorry I missed your name, but Joanne, then we could get it to the P3 system so that you could then disseminate it out. We've also talked about trying to get a better way to send information, pictures and that to 911, the dispatcher's EOC, and we're working on that. Joanne and I are going to work heavily on getting P3 information out to everybody through Nextdoor. That's me, not me as Civic League. But these are things that we need to do to get people involved. We all need to, of course, get on to our city council people, sorry, Kenny, and also to our state level of how to get better funding for the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, how to get better funding for all these officers, pay raises and what's needed there, equipment that they need and things like that. Correct? That would be one of your best helps.
If you don't mind, I want to hop on that point.
Go for it.
Really excellent. And this is almost chapter and verse of the conversation I had with a number of CEOs and senior executives last Thursday in a meeting where they were discussing crime downtown. So, and they said, what can we do? And I actually gave a very similar answer. I said, please call Richmond on one end, and I said, on the other, one of the biggest things that you can do to help us is cameras. Good, high quality cameras with audio and video. There was a homicide the police solved it very quickly. They did a good job on it. The camera system from the business that allowed us to spot the vehicle, the getaway vehicle, was good enough for a make and model. Wasn't good enough for a plate. And the police worked hard. They were able to fill in that gap. And the camera had a plate in it, that would have been like that. Now I'm working on that for you too. So there was about a year to 2 years where the General Assembly banned facial recognition technology. It was a key tool, especially, one of the biggest problems I have is putting murderers and other violent criminals in prison is people are afraid to come talk, because often people commit crimes around their neighbors. It doesn't happen in every case, but people have concerns. And facial recognition technology, taking that tool away from the police department, when it's used in a responsible way with quality software, was making it very hard for us to solve cases, for them to solve cases, and therefore for us to prosecute cases, and for us even to give cover for witnesses. Because there was at least evidence that we knew the identity of an individual, not because a neighbor had said it to us, through some other means. So I got a call from a local delegate who said, would you support a repeal of that technology? I said, or a repeal of the ban. I said, absolutely, put my name on it. This is a criminal justice reform, public safety issue. So, I went up there to try and get those tools back to us. but cameras and facial recognition technology are only as good as the input you give them. And I said to the downtown business leaders, get high quality cameras, video and audio. Same thing. You know, I know it's an expense. Like, I know how much those cameras cost, and I know that inflation's hit this all. But if you have a street full of Ring cameras, you may not capture the crime. You may not capture the person going through the car. You may capture their license plate going out or coming in, just like Captain was talking about. Having that information available and then pairing it with some of the other tools helps. Because, you know, and I know a lot of you heard a lot of my message. You know, I was and am and always will be a believer in reform. Because reform is about putting dangerous criminals in prison without locking everybody up forever and essentially, you know, using a one size fits all. So one of the ways that we can do that, and the key way, is by doing everything we can to show that people are going to get caught, prosecuted, and convicted. So it's not the length of the sentence that people serve, social science, it's not how long someone spends in prison, or not. It's, am I going to get caught? And when we all work as a village, when we have those sorts of things, pair with our businesses, you know, make sure our businesses have top quality cameras, that where we can use those Tidewater Drive Walmart style cameras, you know, and deploy, whether it's in Northside, whether it's in that parking lot or downtown, that helps me be more effective. It helps the police be more effective. It helps me be more effective. It deters crime and it starts driving crime down long term. So what you can do right at home, if your budget's there for it, if it's a possibility, put those cameras up and do exactly what you just heard. Put them together and make that.
What about, and this is probably more directed to city council, what about doing the same thing Portsmouth is doing, putting together a program with the law enforcement agencies to either help people get Ring cameras or Bling cameras or whatever. Portsmouth program is they have to subscribe to the Bling account system for a year, and part of that agreement is they also have to give you guys access for that year. So that again gives you a lot of cameras everywhere.
Thank you. Great question. Mentioned discount all of the ideas, cameras, surveillance, street lights, license plate readers, pay, restoring the steps and benefits that may have been missed over the years. This council have made public safety the top priority. Of course, education receives the lion's share of the general fund, has always received the lion's share of the general fund. We believe that the essence of our community is based on the quality of our schools. However, public safety today is our #1 priority. But we have said to Chief Goldsmith and his team, whatever cameras, surveillance equipment, license plate readers, tools, resources they need, we will fund. But the council is not going to make the decision on the type of camera because, again, we know our limitations as it relates to what tools best work for them to put bad people away. Lawlessness will not be tolerated in our city. We are 100% in support of our public safety, our first responders. We are funding, not defunding. We're endorsing, not devoting our police officers. So, Gary, thank you for your question. But the technology that the council will fund, will appropriate funds for, is technology they tell us, not politicians speaking, but our officers telling us what equipment, what tools they need to put the bad guys away.
So I guess, AJ, that's back into your guys' court and Chief Goldberg's court on Goldsmith, pardon me, who also is still the assistant deputy, whatever, public safety, is he not?
Come on up here. So Chief Goldsmith is a deputy city manager. He's an interim police chief. He is not the police chief. He's the interim police chief. City manager will make the decision. Council, we do not hire the police chief or fire chief. That is an administrative position and city manager. So that's full-time.
But going back to, I guess, and it's in your court maybe to look at Portsmouth's idea of getting more cameras on doors for people who can't afford them, as the Commonwealth pointed out, or you just got an open door invite for being able to fund those lock cop camera systems.
We've always had it. We know that.
So, Tommy and Andy are both here, and I was just thinking, this budget, we make public safety our top priority. And Captain alluded to the support that they are receiving from this council, and in whatever equipment, whatever tools, whatever resources they need, we will make that a top priority. And so we are committed, we are aligned. Public safety is our top priority in the city today. Tommy or either.
Okay, I don't know how long you can speak, and we don't want to go back over stuff you've already covered, so.
I'm Andrea McClellan. For those whom I've not met, I serve you, represent you on Super Ward 6, which is sort of half the city. I don't know what has already been said.
Public safety
Sure.
resources, cameras, lights, lighting, LED lighting that we approved. We're going to try, we're not trying, we will replace all of the old street lights with LED.
I think
Right.
what I would say as it relates to public safety, I mean, there's short-term, near-term, and long-term issues, right? So short-term, we need as many public safety folks out on the streets as possible. That's what we're doing right now. But near-term, long-term, we've got to figure out how to reduce the crime. So what does that mean? That means intervention programs, working with the Newark Community Street Team in the neighborhoods, employing people who are from the neighborhoods who have street cred to mediate problems before they get started. It means working with our schools. It means making sure that people don't have a need to steal, right? Or to commit these crimes. But it also means enforcement of our laws and making sure that we're, doing a good job there. It's a very multifaceted situation. It's very complex. I'm sure it's already been discussed. Our situation in Norfolk isn't unique. We have this going unfortunately around the country right now. We've had 8 shootings on our interstate since June 1st in our region, on our interstates. Last week, they clocked somebody doing 153 miles per hour on 64. I don't know what happened in the pandemic, but it has really caused a sense of chaos that I've never seen before in my lifetime. And it is really stressing our law enforcement for sure. So to the mayor's point, we're doing everything we can to support them, to work with the Commonwealth's attorney to make sure that things are prosecuted. We got folks, if they need to be in jail, they're in jail. And that we're doing the best we can as a community. But a lot of this means also that we need your help. If you see something, say something. Call in. Let us know what's going on. If you think something's not being handled in your community, first report it to the city. But if you're not getting an answer, I would hope that you have our email addresses, our phone numbers. I'm happy to leave it if you don't have that. But you all have to be part of the whole equation. And I'm sorry, I'm repeating what you've already said. And if you see something, call the crime line. Right?
And the P3 app.
You covered a lot, and I just want to let everybody in 2000, I ran for city council because of a crime that happened to me, and I felt like city officials were ignoring it, and so that's why I ended up running. My house was broken into 2 days in a row by gang members, and when they caught them, one of the individuals was our next door neighbor, and he was put on house arrest. He was young, and he proceeded to threaten to kill me and my wife. And so we ended up moving out of our house. My wife was 8 months pregnant, and we lived with my parents in Smithfield for a little while because we couldn't stay in that house. And so
you know, I ran for city council because I didn't think that we were responding as a city to what was going on in East Ocean View where I lived. I did a route, I did a walk, I organized a walk that 500 people came to, walking down Pleasant Avenue to send a message to the city manager at that time and my elected representatives that they weren't doing enough. So I'm very sensitive to what is going on now. We had a very long time where we were not having to worry as much about crime. I mean, we're always fighting crime, but the numbers, whether it's the pandemic or whatever it is, we're just seeing some really awful things going on in our communities. And it's not just Norfolk, it's all over the place. And I'm going to tell you, as a school employee, I'm seeing it in schools too. It's not, whether it's social media, I don't know what it is. We're going to try to put our finger on it. I do want you to know, and we started talking about this last year, even with the police officers leaving. But I want to remind everybody that we just did have a pandemic. And when you're a council member and you have a city manager who's telling you that you could potentially have a $40 million shortfall in your budget because you're not bringing in the tax revenue, there are things that we wanted to do and we want to support that we could not do. Nobody could do that. Nobody was going out and giving employees raises during the pandemic because you didn't know what revenue was going to be coming in. And then the federal government stepped up and we started receiving money. And the minute that we knew that things were getting better, the first thing we did is we directed the city manager to help us with retaining our police officers, because our neighboring city is supposed to be working with us. We're actively recruiting our police officers, our trained police officers, to go to them. So we threw together very quickly a $12,000 retention bonus, which over 355 of our police officers signed that retention bonus to stay, up to 12,000. You know, we knew that there was more work that needed to be done. We started hearing a little bit more about compression issues. And so we have been active and working on this, but folks, wheels of government do not move fast. I've learned that in 12 years as a city council member. But we were talking and we were having conversations, and during our budget cycle, we were saying to Chip, our city manager, in fact, I told Chip, I said, Chip, there's all this conversation about a master police pay. I called Kenny, I said, Kenny, why don't we have a master police pay in our police department? Okay, we had one years ago, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. And so I told the city manager, look, I'm not going to vote on any budget that doesn't include this. He's like, we're working on it. We'll have one in January. I said, no, this budget needs to have that in there.
You held up our budget.
Thank you, I did. I don't know, don't compare me too much to them. But 288 of our police officers ended up getting moved to that master police pay and got a 10.5% to 12.5% pay increase because of that. So we are working, and look, we can never not pay you guys enough. We know that. We're working hard. I think we're very competitive now. We're seeing that work. I don't know if the mayor mentioned that this police academy coming up, we have 33 in the police academy now. We don't know if they'll all make it through, but we hope they all will. And we have 115 applicants for the next one. Now, not all of them will qualify for it, but we are seeing more of an interest of folks. We're advertising everywhere. If you go up to New York and Philadelphia, you will see Norfolk NPD come work for us. What's the slogan they're using? I can't remember it, but we are trying to recruit and bring, what is it? Today will be
Ashley
different.
Tackett, our former CRO, is on those ads.
We know that this is important. So public safety is a priority, and we're all working this. Look, folks, I used to leave my ID badge and my keys to Granby High School in my car. They go in with me now. Okay. Because I'm watching social media, I'm seeing this. They go in my house just in case somebody smashes my window, and I don't want them to do mayhem in the school. My backpack goes in with me wherever I go that has my computer and things in it. We're in a tough time, so we have to be smart with those types of things and just not give those crimes of opportunity, right? And that's what we're seeing. We could help our police officers. About 50% of those could go away. We can't lock guns in cars, okay? Because they end up in hands of wrong people. And so we have to just right now buckle down with that. And your community has faced some serious things. And Sherry and I have talked about you know, the homicide that happened off of Little Creek Road, and I know you don't have any members that live right there, but it turned into triple homicide because somebody recently, you know, passed away. That's unheard of, even for Ward 5. When we talk about homicides, we don't usually hear of homicides on this side. That was a domestic related thing, and they're still investigating, and hopefully we'll be able to catch them. But just know we care. And for anybody to say, I read social media, that city council does not care, you have to know how hard we've been working. And Kenny and Andrew and I, we talk all the time. I even went down the Granby Street because Courtney Doyle asked me to go down and see what was going on Granby Street. I walked for 2 hours on Granby Street. And it was awful what I saw, what Granby Street had turned into from when I was in college and used to party down there. It's a different environment. It's a different place. And we're going to crack down on that. Places that opened up as restaurants have turned into nightclubs. And unfortunately, it's taking up all of their resources, our police resources, to get that under control when they should be in our neighborhoods. And so we are aware of it. We're working hard. We're trying. And if we want your feedback, we want to hear from you about things that maybe we're missing with that. I've had to say that to a couple of police officers. I've given a couple of the police unions a hard time because if things were happening, they haven't reached out to me and said, hey, we need your help, or this is, you know, this is what's going on in the police department. And so we get that information, and once we get it, we run with it. We will ask the city manager those hard questions and say, what are you doing to make sure? And we need to support our Commonwealth's Attorney's Office. Okay, we need to make sure that he has the resources as well. We don't control the judicial system. Okay, we don't have anything to do with appointing judges and the decisions that they make on that. And people think that we do, but we do not. But we can give the resources that are needed. Our sheriff, I don't know if Joe was here earlier. You know, we've talked, our sheriff deputies, our firefighters, our EMTs also were part of that public safety pay plan. But please give us that feedback. Andrea said that I've got business cards. We want to hear from you. I already talked to some of your civic leagues. There's some different civic leagues here, but we want to hear from you. We want to hear that feedback. We want to support you, and we want to support all of our resources.
And the best way to give us that feedback is to text us, email us.
Please don't post it on Facebook or next door.
Media.
Yeah.
It's not generally the most effective way to get in touch with me. So let us know in person. I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah. Kenny.
Before we kind of get to questions, because we've kept all these wonderful officers from South Bayview and Rami from South Bayview, who is having a barbecue tonight, and Kenny. A couple other people may have gone there first. All these officers in that are missing a barbecue to be here, so we should all give them a round of applause for being here, along with Mayor and
There seems to be two words in 2022 that are resounding over and over again. One is enforcement, and the other is funding. And we've always said that the city can fund anything that they want. It's just that they can't fund everything. And so with that, Raymond was talking about his discussions with downtown corporations, businesses, about installing high quality cameras, surveillance cameras, and knowing that these cost a lot. Is there any way that we could do a search of available grants, available funding?
So I actually,
What about from ARPA?
yeah, no, I after spending from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. on Gravy Street last Friday night, I asked that question to the manager, and here's what I found. There are a lot of cameras that already exist downtown, a lot of private cameras that are down here. And what the manager doesn't want to do is put all that information out to the public to hear, because sometimes it's better not to know where the cameras are if you're one of the bad guys, right? And so what he is working on right now is trying to figure out where the holes are and putting cameras there, because he knows that needs to be a piece of it, but it's not necessarily blanketing it the way that I went to him and said, we need a camera on every, and he said, you know, now I'm going to look to my friends back there and you guys afterwards tell me if that's right or wrong, but that's what I understand. And that makes sense. There's a lot of those folks do have that. We have access to that. The problem with cameras is this. You go back to enforcement. If you don't have somebody watching those cameras on a regular basis, you're not going to see it happen. It's great after the fact in a reactive situation, but if you want to use those as a means to go capture something while it's happening, one of these folks is going to have to be there monitoring it.
Yeah.
Right
I'm
now, that's a
speaking
problem. Am I right?
prosecutorial.
So
Do you have a comment on that?
We have, like the cameras you see on Granby Street, we have them in we have a telephone recording unit. They're monitoring those cameras. They've got a screen up with all those cameras on. And the one way we do use them, if I'm on Granby Street, I say, hey, there's a large crowd in front of whatever location, they can zoom in on that and they're like another set of eyes. It tells when something's ready to go on. And we start pulling our resources so we can try to prevent something from happening at the same time. Same thing in Ocean View, but like you said, you have to be watching it. You know, we have a big event in Community Beach and we've got the camera there. I had it moved to the end further to the beach shack because it gave me the ability to look at the whole parking lot, you know. But we can always make improvements. What we did see is that, well, we see things that we can make improvements on. So, and we will.
And it's my understanding, I had my monthly meeting with the city manager last week. We have purchased new technology, new cameras that will read license plates. And that is a newer law. Somebody can correct me with this, but there was a recent decision that does allow localities to go back to having those. It was not allowed. Police officers, you couldn't take it to court, and now you can. And so you can use those, and that will be helpful. But just like everything else in our society now, everything's on back order. So anything that has a microchip takes a long time to get to places. But he reassured me that these have been purchased and that they're on their way. And I have specifically asked, Andrew was supportive of this. I didn't really talk to the mayor about it, but I know he's going to be supportive, that we start looking at more of our public spaces where we can have those cameras, like we're piloting it at Community Beach. You know, Northside comes up all the time. We know with the $5 million renovation that's going to be coming.
For that for how many years?
Yeah. That there's supposed to be some security upgrades that will come with that. So we're pushing that.
So let me pivot slightly about that. Ramin and I were talking about this. Maybe you want to talk about this, but body worn cameras, great, awesome. We have all this coverage. Here's the challenge. Talk about what that means. Body worn cameras. You all have to review it.
I'd be happy to talk about that.
Yeah, and so and we're supposed to have 6 more people in his office for all those body worn cameras that we don't have because they have to review all that footage. And so for something that might have been a simple charge that could have been prosecuted easily now takes 30 minutes, an hour to review the camera footage.
Before you, let me just say this. So, 3 of us are in the same room and we're probably getting in too much city business. So I'm gonna go. Anytime 3 of us together, usually for a social event, the Civic League, we can do it. But policy may originate out of this. So let me ease on out the door before
We
somebody.
don't want to be on the newspaper.
Some of you guys are making public policy, and we're not. We're just having a conversation around public safety, something that's priority and something that's very important to all of us. So I'm gonna ease out so that we don't violate any laws, and I don't want to have to prosecute us. So I mean, I'm gonna leave before.
Please tell Yelena Kay that I'm sorry I'm not there yet. Please, I hope I'm not dead to South Bayview yet. I will be there.
We'll try to, hopefully they'll save you some food.
So that we don't violate any, because maybe we just some public policy. I don't want to use it for formulating policy. And
Kenny, thank you for coming. Yeah, thank you, Kenny, for coming.
One of the biggest things that happened in my job as a prosecutor. 16 years I've been prosecuting, it was 20 years I've been prosecuting. They're unqualified for it, in my opinion. The number of bogus complaints about police misconduct that a body camera could summarily shut down that would have just been a swearing contest 10 years ago. That in itself is useful. Not to say nothing of the immense value they have to get in court. So I tried a major murder for hire case about 8 or 9 couldn't have been that long. It would have been within the first year of the introduction of body cameras. And fortunately, the victim lived she was pregnant, 8 months pregnant, her baby was okay, but the ability to put that body camera in front of the jury was absolutely essential when the first responder, who's now one of our best detectives, comes in and is aiding. Big problem is that, and it goes right back to what we were talking about, misdemeanors, but it also goes to felonies too. When I was a DUI hunter and DUI specialist at the beginning of my career, I could look at the butterfly sheet that it took hours for one of the police officers to put together, and I literally had 4 lines that I could look at. And if everything was good with those 4 lines, I knew that we weren't drawn dead. That the rest of it was about what the weight of the evidence was, but I wasn't going to have to dismiss the case because there was a problem. I could evaluate one of those cases in 10 or 15 minutes. A simple possession arrest, again, it took hours to put together. For $10 of drugs, I could literally look and in about 10 minutes know what the case was worth to see. Every one of those cases now produces hours of body camera. And the Virginia State Bar that decides whether I get to be a lawyer or whether my colleagues get to be lawyers says we have to watch all. That means that our office that at one point had 42 lawyers in it, and thanks to cuts from the state government that we had partially made up with the city, partially made up with grants, we have 38 lawyers. But the 42 lawyers who were doing the work in the mid-2000s, for us realistically to be doing that same number of cases that same throughput of cases, we would need way more than 42 lawyers. It's just not, and so we are again having to, allocate extremely limited resources, but basically we had case inflation, if you want to think about it that way, in terms of the numbers. And then to add insult to injury, the Virginia legislature said, great, you have body cameras. Yeah, that's creating more work. We're actually going to impose an unfunded mandate on your localities. We're going to require your localities, if they roll out body cameras, to give you 1 lead prosecutor for every 75 body cameras. We're not going to pay for it because, again, we didn't make you do it, so we're not going to pay for it. So again, if we're in a jurisdiction here, so the city council is doing everything they can. They've given some of the prosecutors that come from that mandate, but it's not realistic for me to ask for all at once. There are other localities that got none of those prosecutors. There are other localities that got all of those prosecutors in the form. And so watching that camera footage, yeah, the domestic assault is extremely serious, leading indicator for homicides. Why we prosecute those cases, like it could take us 5 or 10 minutes to read the file, and we could spend the next 15 hours on that file talking to the victim, trying to get the victim to understand that lying for her abuser so that he can walk out of jail is dangerous, and actually get her to court so we can convict him. Instead, we're spending it on body cameras. And again, I do not want to go to the free body camera era, but these are the kinds of choices that my prosecutors and I are having to make in where it's like, which of your children do you save? It's those kinds of questions.
And can I just, since Ramin brought it up, we know all politics are local, but we really need for you guys to also speak with and lobby your state legislators. We are a Dillon rule state. There's only 4 of them in the whole country. And so the Virginia General Assembly has a lot of power in what happens at the locality. And you just heard about cuts in police funding. I was the president of the Virginia Municipal League, which is the largest organization representing every locality across the state. Every city, town. Yeah. No, we have some counties. There are a few counties. And every year, our top priority in lobbying legislators, education and public safety, funding for public safety. They made such drastic cuts over the years that was supplying money to localities to help fund anything from bulletproof vests into equipment. And it was the locality that had to take up on that. We're used to this. We're used to unfunded mandates and things coming down from the General Assembly. So I'm not pointing fingers. It's not a Republican, Democrat thing. It's all of them. You need to talk to your legislators. You need to invite them here and talk to them about what's going on. And, you know, we were just over at South Bayview when we were talking about the catalytic converter thefts. One thing that changed was a stronger law that made these a felony, not just for those that were taking it, but also for those that were receiving them. And the procedures have changed for documenting them. That is a great law that we should hopefully see a reduction in the catalytic converter thefts. So we need your help with them too. We need your help. We'll put some things in our legislative package asking like we always do. But at the end of the day, we need their support as well with that.
Speed cameras. People always ask us about speed cameras because why don't you just have speed cameras up? Well, until recently, the law in Virginia was no speed cameras were allowed. Now, recently, we can have speed cameras in school zones and construction zones. Last year we had it in our legislative package, and we will get them all over the place. But the other challenge of that is if you have a speed camera, you still have to have law enforcement that has to go and verify that that ticket was correct. So it's not quite as easy as that, but I don't know if you want to talk.
We can, and we have just like our red light cameras. Probably have just for a round, just not exact number. Say we have 1,500 violations.
AJ, can you come forward? Because
We may only collect on half of those. Right off the bat, people, you know, pay their fines and pay their costs. They're not going to have to have to get that money. Maybe either we do it or we don't eventually get that. So same thing with speed cameras. It'll be the same way. So and you will have to, like Ramin said with body worn, they'll have to be reviewed. So you'll have policemen sitting somewhere that are reviewing them. So we're putting processes in place for that because we know it's coming as well. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and we'll have dedicated people to review those speed cameras, just like we do with the red light camera.
I'm sure it was mentioned that we implemented hiring retired police officers back. Did the mayor speak of that?
We did not, but we, you know, we
so
have. They have
council
done
just voted on an ordinance that will allow retired police officers to be rehired, and they can work up to 1,050 hours part-time. And we do have interest from retired police officers now coming in that can now sit and take care of the red light cameras and things like that, as opposed and we can move our officers out on the street in patrols instead of sitting behind a camera. So that's going to be some relief to help with this. And interim chief Goldsmith told me that there was interest, that there are retired police officers that want to come back. So
Do a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I got one.
Or comments.
okay, good, okay.
I got a question. I hear quotes like funding shortfalls and restrictions on departments and offices because they don't have the money to hire people. What is the city doing to try to generate the revenue to increase the shortfall, maybe have a surplus to be able to fund the Commonwealth attorney so you can hire people, pay the cops more, stuff like that? What's being done to make sure we get money to do what the city needs to do?
We're not raising your taxes. So that was one thing. There hasn't been a tax increase. There wasn't one this year. Assessments did go up. So that did generate more revenue, which allowed us to now invest that into the police department. That was our number one priority. We have never defunded the police. And I want to say that very clear. That has been going around social media. Norfolk has never defunded. And the first time that came up, there was not one council member that ever said, we're going to pull money from the police or de-police them. That never came up. We have, Norfolk and Portsmouth in particular, a very large portion of our land is untaxable. And so we don't generate as much revenue. Our penny is not worth much as it is in Virginia Beach and Chesapeake.
35% of our land
It's taxable. And that's because
Yeah,
of the Navy base.
the university,
Yeah.
the hospital.
And we're already a small city, so it's Portsmouth. And so they have the terminals, we have that as well. And so we don't get all of that money back from the state. However, this is why Norfolk and Portsmouth are kind of being allowed to move forward with casinos, because we can generate some extra revenue with that. So when our casino comes online, we're expected to generate $35 to $40 million a year. Whether or not that actually ends up handing out, that's what the model says. But that is direct cash revenue that's coming into the city that we can now apply towards things. And look, we're not cash strapped. We got money. Norfolk had a lot of debt from the 80s and 90s. There's a lot of spending, and that debt we're trying to pay it off. And we have had very smart city manager who has been able to help us with that. And also we've earned a AAA bond rating with one of the bond rating agencies. So we are working and managing that. We were able to give all of our employees a raise, a significant raise, and also raise the minimum rate to $18. Part-time is 15. But we are putting that money into that. So I just want to make sure, because I heard a little bit of the defunding police thing in there, but we haven't. We're not,
Was your
yeah.
question specific to police or was it a
No,
general?
it was, that was just the budget shortfalls, and because I heard the amount of like $40 million.
Right, that was the expected, but we didn't, we actually did better. Yeah. Because people weren't paying their tax bills during COVID. We weren't getting the restaurant tax, which is a significant tax for us as well. And so we were expecting a $40 million shortfall. We did not end up with that, which was great. The numbers came up better. So once things opened back up, people went out and ate. And so that helped with the revenue. But we put that back into the police.
But we also have libraries and schools, rec
School
centers
system, yeah.
that aren't fully staffed, but it's not because it's a lack of funding, it's a lack of people. We haven't been able to hire. And that's not specific to us. This is a universal problem. I don't know where everybody is, by the way. But people are, so we're hoping that changes, but we do have the funds for that.
Sorry if I misunderstood. I thought, unfortunately, I'm a little bit sensitive to that too, but the social media has been saying that Norfolk, the reason why we're having so many police leave is because we defunded the police, and that's simply not true at all.
As we draw to a close, something we've all kind of, and a quick rerun of this, something we've all learned, and Andre, you brought it up. AJ, you brought it up. If you see something, report it. We all have a camera. It's our cell phone. Now, to let you guys know, I personally wear a body camera almost everywhere I go. Marlene, you had an incident and I brought it up with you. Little body camera. They run about $60. Really good. Then you can always put that information to the detective back here through the P3 program and Crime Line. So that way people can get this out. The old neighborhood watch concept isn't as popular, but AJ said they're trying to bring it back around in some things. There's the canine watch when you're out walking dogs, but everybody carries a cell phone. If you're afraid to confront them with a camera. No, as in not confront them directly, but take the time to record. Yeah, please be safe. Yeah.
Watch out for your neighbors.
And just the idea, Andrew and I spoke to the Lake White West. If you have a maintenance person or a landscaper coming to your house, let them pull into your driveway and back up into your driveway. Give them a place in your house if they're coming in to lay down their tools. Oftentimes they like to work out of the back of their trucks, but once again, we're in a weird time right now. We need to help support them, lay out a blanket on your floor, let them put their tools down there so they don't have to keep on coming back and forth, for that, but let them use your driveway if you can. Just another thing that you can do to help.
What would be on local timeline? What is, I mean, is it as far as?
Yeah, they've ordered one. They've ordered one for Northside Park. Yeah. I know. No. The one at Community Beach was actually taken from Granby Street to get down there, but they could not take another one. So because of what's going on Granby Street, so they moved one from there to Community Beach. Yeah.
Daryl, Parks and Rec's comment was it's going to take about 4 months.
Okay.
So we are really out of time. Past time, like at least half an hour past time. Again, everybody had good questions. I just need to make one announcement. Candace has stepped down as our secretary. So next month we'll be voting for secretary. And I want to thank all the officers. Or you could do it.
Sherry, if I guess.
Yeah.
And if you guys have personal questions, I'm sure the officers will stick around for a couple minutes.